Well, it depends wholly on the publisher. If you are a designer and you sign over the rights to your design to a publisher, typically you have signed over all rights to it to a certain extent. So they can't defame you, and they can't use it in a way that would make you look bad. Other than that, they pretty much have carte blanche. So the game another game that's upstairs called Tortuga was not ever called Tortuga. It was called Swashbucklers. And the German publishers, Queen Games, said nobody in Germany understands what a swashbuckler is. They don't have a word for it. But we know where Tortuga is as an island because it exists. So that's why a lot of German games actually are named after places, because you don't have to translate that. That's another way you can get a job, by the way, as a translator. So if anybody here speaks a weird language that games might get translated into, you can find yourself in the position where a company will call you up and say, we need our rules translated into Romanian. Go. They'll give you the English rules and you translate. But back to the story about art direction. So artists are typically chosen by the publisher. Sometimes they'll ask us, oh, who would you like to do the art for that? And we might give suggestions, and then it's up to our artist friends to pitch their case, to say, okay, I can do it for this much. Just like bidding on any contract. Art direction on our end, usually we don't get involved in the art unless it's really, really egregious, like we don't like it at all, or it impacts on how the game would play. That's really when we can get in there. So on Belfort, Josh Capel, who is one of our great friends and great artists, he forgot something on part of the board, so we had to tell him, you forgot this, I think it needs to have this. We weren't sure if he was going to put it or what, so we just kind of had to get up and say it, because the publishers weren't saying anything about it. So there are other art errors or art things that we make comment about. If you come up and see the box for Tortuga, the letter T kind of looks like the letter J. And so we had this back and forth with the publishers about, everybody thinks it's called Jortuga. And they're like, no, it can't be Jortuga. There's no island named Jortuga. It ended up staying the same, but whatever. So there's not a lot of art control, but if you're working with a good publisher who communicates well with you, to me now, as an experienced designer, that's worth more than the royalties that a bigger publisher might get you. Communication is key.
He said communication is key. It's just funny that you said that without me.
I know.
Just like emphasize it in so many great ways. I'm going to tell a story that is not normative concerning art. So a guy put out a game called Infamy. It's with the same publisher that I just had Wall City come up with, Mercury Games. And so Infamy has awesome art style. And so the person designed it, and he hired an artist, like post-prototype, but pre-publisher. And so he hired an artist, paid thousands of dollars, got all the art done.
Don't do that.
Well, that was my point. So he pitched it then to a publisher, and the first publisher he showed it to, he said, this is the art, and I need this art to get compensated for. Like, I paid it, but I need you to pay that. And the publisher said, well, we would change the art. So if that's the catch, we won't sign the game. So he couldn't get his game signed. Now, eventually he found Mercury, and Mercury actually loved the art, and so they signed the game, and their art budget just went to that person. But that is the horror story. Like, don't do that. Don't pay for art up front. If anything, maybe find a friend and say, hey, you want exposure for art? I'm going to be showing publishers. I don't mind, giving your business card as well, and if they like the prototype, maybe they'll get their foot in the door. Maybe it might even be good to tell the Rob Lundy story.
Oh, yeah.
But in general, my stress is, with art, invest just enough to make it functional. So, don't make your prototype so ugly or so unfunctional that it gets in the way of the playtest, but you don't need to make it pretty, just make it work.
If you get a chance, if you look up Inspiration to Publication, that's our blog, you can see some of our early prototypes, and they're nothing more than clip art. Literally stolen clip art.
Steal clip art.
I'm not,
Don't publish that.
Yeah, don't ever publish that or try to sell it. But yes, for prototypes, it's perfect. The Rob Lundy story. Rob Lundy is one of our friends who's an artist as well. And he he is now the in-house artist for Tasty Minstrel Games. He does almost all the art for all their games. And how he got in there is by doing a comic book for Jay about Belfort.
They met at like a Comicon.
Yeah. Oh, no. Jay is in Vancouver and Rob's in Ottawa. So they just found a guy he's an animator by trade, who wanted to do comic art for fun, and they paid him like $50 a page to draw this little comic book about our board game, Belfort. And then the publisher liked the art so much that they hired him as their in-house artist. So that's another way you can get work in the field. Another thing about art that Daryl was kind of getting to that I want to really focus on is that there are two real parts of art, right? There's illustration, which is the fancy painted pictures and comic book art and stuff like that. And then there's the layout and design. And what do you think is more important? Layout and design or illustration?
Layout.
Yeah, layout and design, the graphic design part of it is 100 times, maybe 1,000 times, maybe 1,000,000 times more important. Why? Because it actually conveys the information to the game player. It is what takes your thoughts from your rules, puts it on a card or a board, and translates that information, mana cost and tap to destroy this and that. That's what translates that into the rules. So graphic design is 100 times more important than finding the really nice placeholder art. So spend all your time working on graphic design and making it more and more easy for somebody to get what you're trying to convey to them on the card layout or on the board layout or in your rules than worrying about, pictures and things like that. On a similar notion, just also remember that there are colorblind people out there, so do use a lot of icons that aren't necessarily color dependent. So shape dependent things are a little more easier for people with color, well, they're definitely more easy for people with color blindness to understand, and there are more colorblind people than you think.
Yeah, you can do both at the same time, right? So another tip from my buddy Eric Lang is he's a master of card design. So he often stresses have 3 indicators for someone to be able to identify that card. It might be there's a fire symbol and it's red and it's circled by a square or whatever, come up with multiple ways to communicate that same thing so that people can get it quickly, get that communication fast. Also, if you're picturing a card, we call this the Eric Lang spot. The Eric Lang spot. Because if you fan out cards, you need to communicate everything here.
Yeah.
So again, as much as you can, as much as this might be a card, this is your sweet spot. That you have to, whatever people have to know, you want to communicate that. Now, depending on how you use cards, so that's if you have a hand of cards. If you're splaying cards, if you're tucking cards, that's going to change. So think through functionality, layout, how are you using these components, and then how do you communicate that? Another question?
Quick question. What's something that both of you kind of wish you had known when you started out learning about board games?
Brian's asking what we wish we would have known when we started. For me, it is really getting stuff on the table faster. The sooner I can get something on the table, the sooner I know what's working, what's not working, but my brain doesn't work like that. But luckily I have a partner whose brain does, so Jay forces me to do that. If you are thinking about game design, and if you have a friend who likes game design, maybe think about teaming up with them, because you'll find that any area that you're weak in, they might have the strength in that area and be able to complement each other. That whole, you complete me kind of thing. So Jay kind of completes me in that regard. So yes, definitely the one thing is get stuff on the table faster.
I'm going to tell Jay that.
Yeah, he knows.
He's going to love that.
Pro love.
Pro love. So one line he said earlier as well was failing faster. So in general, it kind of ties in, but it also, I think it's that whole feedback component. I think, I am not afraid to show a horrible game now and hear, negative comments. I just get it out there, and then I just find what's fun. Just lean into find the fun. So I will if I have an idea, let's just get it out there, and then I will watch. For me, it's all about observation skills. My wife's a counselor, so I love all very cognitive theory stuff. So anything from if people are leaning in because they're engaged to leaning back because they don't care. Anything from, are people getting angry? Well, are they engaged? What does that mean? Like, why are they motivated, or why are they frustrated, or what do they want to do? And is that frustration even a good thing? Because, you know, games don't always have to motivate off of ha ha ha. Like, it could be like a mind burner, you know, brain burner or something. So just find how people are reacting to it and then lean into that. So fail fast, find the fun.